Let's go for it!
I like the dark stuff. Give me the dark stuff. I like the dark stuff. Give me the dark stuff.
Hey everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host of the Dark Stuff channel here on YouTube. Thanks a lot for tuning in, checking out my new video. If you pay attention at all to the new release schedules, you might have an idea what this video is about. Of course, if you read the title, you definitely do. But it's my review of the brand new album from St. Vincent, Daddy's Home. Okay, her 6th or maybe 7th album, depending, because, you know, she had Mass Seduction and then Mass Education. They're the same songs, just done in completely different styles. I sort of keep them together, and that would make this the 6th album, but if you don't, then it makes it the 7th album. Okay. Anyone who has watched my channel knows for any length of time that I'm a huge St. Vincent fan. In fact, look, I'm wearing the St. Vincent hoodie that I bought along with the record when I pre-ordered it. But we'll get to that pre-ordering debacle, a minor debacle in a minute. I've been a fan of her since the first record. I've been on the radio since 2004, so I do get a lot of advanced stuff. I got a 2-song CD single from her first album, and I instantly liked it. Been a fan ever since. Seen her live on every single tour that she's done, with one exception, and that was the David Byrne tour. I didn't get to see that one, unfortunately. I've seen a bunch of videos on YouTube, but as everyone knows, that's not exactly the same. So, one of the things that people either really, really love about St. Vincent or find very infuriating is that she does change it up stylistically, and not just a hint here or there. It's like kind of radical amounts. And she gets compared a lot to David Bowie, and some people have a problem with that because they say, well, her music doesn't sound anything like David Bowie, and that's for the most part true. But David Bowie did adopt new styles, did adopt new personas, new looks, a whole new thing every time he kind of went out on the road or went out and presented a new record. You know, he had Ziggy Stardust, he was like the Thin White Duke, he was like, you know, all these different sort of personas that he would carry on. And St. Vincent does that a lot as well. And since there's no real equivalent in the modern era of someone that does that, she gets a lot of comparisons to David Bowie. We've laid out the fact that I am a fan, and I'm going into this wanting to like the new album. Okay, that's the preamble, the thing that I'm giving you here. Before we start talking about the music, let's actually talk about the packaging. I got the deluxe version of the album. It is a gatefold, and hopefully no one busts me for the little picture of a butt there. So Annie is looking at a Playboy magazine, lounging on a bedroom, looking like a woman from the Lower East Side of New York in the early 70s, and that's the sort of the theme and the look that she is going for on this one. You know, on the self-titled album, she had that big white Medusa hair, and she was kind of doing futuristic rock star, and then I think on the last time, when for Mass Seduction, it was the sort of overly sexed pop star, wearing real skimpy kind of outfits and whatnot. So let's get back into the record. Sorry. Okay, so this one is her early 70s kind of village hipster, whatever you called hipsters back then, bohemians. Comes with this poster, Annie looking real sexy there, showing some leg. That also doubles as the lyric sheet, which is big and readable. I thank you for that. Also comes with this deluxe is a photo book of Annie in New York. I have yet to open it. I'm not going to go through it on here, but I'm not going to keep it sealed or anything. But it's a lot of like nice art photos, and then is a patch from St. Vincent. Put it on your jean jacket or whatever you want to. Put it on there, so it's a nice patch. Here's the artwork on the inside. I already showed you the gatefold. Here's the back of the record. Okay, so it's a very themed piece, themed to have that feel of the early 70s. And again, art direction great on the new record. Now, the album was originally released on the 14th. That was the street date, May 14th. It's a Friday. And I had pre-ordered the record last March. And I know that it was March 5th because I had to look it up because I didn't get any notification that my record was being shipped. And how was it going to get there by the time of release date if they hadn't even told me that it had shipped? So I did a little research. I got an unfortunate letter from the company that handles the pre-orders, which happens to be Live Nation, the mega concert company. So I didn't know what their merchandise operation was like. But they sent a Dear Dave letter basically saying, yeah, your order's not going to be fulfilled on time. We will get to it, but we don't have any information now. Sorry. And if you want your money back, you just write back and we'll give you your money back. Well, I didn't want to do that because I'd already ordered the sweatshirt and I needed to get that and yada, yada, yada. So keeping that in mind, I had to hear the new album. I did go online and listen to it a couple times on Spotify because I was annoyed that I didn't have it when I bought it 2 months in advance. So if you'd asked me after a day or two of listening to the album what my thoughts are, I would have said something pretty negative, like just downer. In fact, probably Monday night, let's see, the 14th, 15th, the 17th, let's say, I got 3 or 4 different texts from people and one call from friends being like, so what do you think of the new St. Vincent album? What do you think of the new St. Vincent album? And my thoughts were kind of like negative. I was just like, I don't know, it's real slow, I don't like it, there's no guitar, there's no this, there's no that. And, but I kept pointing out, I always qualified that by saying, but I love St. Vincent and I'm not writing her off or anything. Just long-term artists sometimes have duds and whatever, and maybe this just isn't the one. So that was my attitude for the first couple of days, maybe the first week. Finally, on Friday, the 21st, a full week after release date, I did get my shipment and I got the album. And sweatshirt notwithstanding, I was more excited about the vinyl, which I got the black vinyl version. I don't know if there's different versions. I don't really care much for the, colored versions. It doesn't make any difference to me. So I put it on and I listened to it, and not just because it's vinyl, but I feel like I finally connected more with the record. I started hearing a little bit more musically than maybe I was hearing just through Spotify, a low-grade MP3 or whatever. And I started coming away with this thought that there's more here than I initially thought, and I need to hear it again. So immediately when side 2 ended, I flipped it back over, put it on side 1, and listened to it again. And I've been listening to it over the weekend. I'm taping this on a Sunday. I now have come to the conclusion that this isn't my favorite St. Vincent album in her catalog, but this is still a really, really great record. It's just, what I was doing was something that a lot of people are guilty of when they're long-term fans of an artist and they feel critical of a record. Doesn't mean you can't feel critical, doesn't mean that's not legitimate. But sometimes, and I'm just saying this for myself, sometimes I criticize a record based on what it's not, as opposed to based on what it is. And I'm definitely guilty of this. I do this I've done this a number of times. So I'm looking for certain things in the record, the certain kind of dance grooves that St. Vincent puts in, the crazy guitar lines and the cool riffage and just stuff that she's done in the past on her previous records, even up to Mass Seduction, which didn't have as much of it, and I believe I pointed that out at the time, but there were still some cool guitar parts on there. Anyways, so I'm looking at it like, I don't know, she's not wailing on the guitar, she's not doing this, she's not doing that. These songs are so strange, I don't know what she's talking about necessarily. And that was the criticism. And I think by hearing it on vinyl, sonically better, but I heard the more instrumentation. It felt more like there was a band in a room creating this music. It's not just, Annie Clark and Jack Antonoff, the other producer, sitting back in a booth and directing everyone else to do stuff, and meanwhile she's just the singer. And I don't feel that way anymore. I'm not going to go necessarily track by track in terms of, giving an analysis of all that. I did that on Mass Seduction, and the video will be too long if I do that way. But I will say that for some of these songs, well, first of all, So I now told you what it's not. It doesn't sound like the self-titled album. It doesn't sound like Actor. It doesn't sound like Strange Mercy. A hint of the first album, Marry Me, actually a little bit, but it is a new thing. And it's not going to be shattering to Annie Clark or to her fans to say that the album is heavily influenced by a couple of key artists and albums, and she willingly and openly admits to it. I mean, she has a video, and if I can find it, I'll link to it, where she says these are the albums that are the most impactful or most influential on the sound of Daddy's Home. She says, number 1, Steely Dan, Pretzel Logic. Well, I could have said Steely Dan. I even made a joke on Facebook when I was still negative about the album that just sounds like a Steely Dan album. I've moved beyond that. It does have elements of Steely Dan. She talked about Stevie Wonder. She talked about War, the band War. There are other influences. Lou Reed, for sure. Lou Reed's early 70s period, definitely Transformer. And in fact, there's a song that closes the album called Candy Darling, which is a reference to, I believe, the same Candy Darling that was known for being around Andy Warhol, and Lou Reed had written about her a bunch of times. So she even has that sort of vibe. So there is a little bit of that Transformer era Lou Reed going along. And of course, he's from New York, and a lot of it is based on that sort of New York thing. Although I think he recorded that record in London. Don't quote me on that. So the title Daddy's Home is a reference to Annie Clark's real-life father, who went away to prison for some type of white-collar thing, was gone for a while, and then he got out of jail, I think, in 2018 or 2019. Now, she's talked about her dad in a couple of interviews in the past. I interviewed her, and it's not like they said, hey, don't talk about her dad or anything. They didn't give me any parameters like that, but I wouldn't have ever asked, you know what I mean? So there's a reference in the song Daddy's Home to her going to prison to visit him and people asking for autographs and stuff like that. So it's obviously, was a significant event in her life. As far as is the album like based on that, I mean, I can't necessarily tell. The lyrics are hard for me to understand. Again, they're sort of abstract in this case. I'd say Pay Your Way in Pain. I don't know what that has to do with anything. That's a great song. Super fast. It was the first single. It's like upbeat. It's like, kind of poppy, funky. It's really good. Down and Out in Downtown. The second song, also kind of upbeat, also kind of poppy, a little funky or whatever. And then the album takes a really slow turn pretty much till the end almost. I mean, it is, if there's one criticism I could make, it's that the tempos don't vary that much. There's a lot of really slow to mid-tempo stuff throughout the record. Think of the second half of Mass Seduction. Think of the entirety of Mass Education. Think of a lot of the Marry Me record. So after Daddy's Home, which is the third track on side 1, you get to the song Live in the Dream. Live in the Dream to me is the most interesting from a musical perspective, and it does really feel like, first of all, it has an Annie Clark guitar solo, as far as I know. The song is very, very influenced by Pink Floyd. I would say Dark Side of the Moon in general. That fits that early 70s period, although not in New York, because Pink Floyd, of course, was from England, and I think they recorded their album in England. I don't think they recorded it in New York, but it has it begins, and it sort of sounds like that song Us and Them, okay, from the album. And then it just sort of expands into what I would just say Dark Side of the Moon sounding in general. So whatever you think that would sound like, that's what this sounds like. It's this over 6-minute track. It's got a lot of good instrumentation. It does feel like people in a room playing, and then they just sort of turned it down. So that's a really interesting song. Maybe my favorite on the record. Hard to say. But it is really, really good. And again, you're going to have a hard time not hearing Us and Them when it starts. But I think if you listen to it, jump online and hear the song Live in the Dream, and you'll see it's not any one particular other song on Dark Side. I think it's just, it has that feel. And there's probably some intent to it, I would imagine. The rest of side 1 ends with The Melting of the Sun, which is a pretty good pop song. Again, very mid-tempo. It's a single, I believe, also that has been released. And then one of 3 interludes that are really short one's 28 seconds, one's about a minute, one's a minute and change, of these kind of weird instrumentals called Humming, interlude number 1. And I shouldn't say instrumental because you hear her talking, but it's really hard to understand, and it's sort of whispering, singing, and whatever. And again, it's more atmospheric, but they're all sort of towards the second half of the record, which is, I guess, unusual. I don't know. Well, side 2 opens with another sort of slower, quieter song called The Laughing Man, and that's what the lyrics are then quoted on my sweatshirt. Something like, if you're dying to live, well, whatever. If life is a joke, then I'm always laughing. That's a line from the song. I didn't realize that until just a little bit ago when I was listening to it again. Anyways, good song. Now they're starting to get into a little bit more of the Steely Dan sort of sounds. And again, nothing is super overt. You just get a feel. Like she said pretzel logic, and the song something any dudes will tell you or whatever. And she points out that specific song, and so I didn't re-listen to Pretzel Logic to try to hear it, but my feeling is it's just generally sort of a Steely Dan early part of their career, first half, in general, attempt to sound like that. Down is really great. It's kind of funky. It peaks the tempo up just a touch. And then she goes into kind of an acoustic song called Somebody Like Me, and the song, it feels like it's from the perspective of she's sort of saying to the audience, like, why would you put so much faith in someone like me? You know, like, do you understand what you're doing? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you putting all these hopes and dreams and things in somebody like me? That's what I think she's sort of saying. And again, maybe that could tie back to the Daddy's Home thing, or this is her father. Maybe it's just a song about her relation to her audience, or maybe it's none of the above. I don't know. It's a nice tune, though. It's a nice tune. The next one, though, is my least favorite, and it's so freaking annoying that I can't even describe it. It's called My Baby Wants a Baby. Now, the song, once it gets going, is not so bad, but it uses the melody of the Sheena Easton song Morning Train. You know, my baby takes the morning train. He works from 9 to 5, and then he takes another home again to find. Okay, it's that song. And it's inescapable. If you were alive at that time, you remember Sheena Easton, you remember that song. Now, I looked up in the credits, and it does say that the song was written by her and... Hold on, I'll find it. My Baby Wants a Baby, written by Annie Clark and Flory Palmer. So I looked up who wrote the original song, Morning Train, and it was Flory Palmer. So clearly she's like acknowledging it. It's sort of like maybe when Garbage used that Jesus and Mary Chain song and they credited it as written by Jesus and Mary Chain and them. I think you still have to get permission to alter it, but whatever. The point is, why you choose that song? I mean, ugh, yuck.
That is one big pile of shit.
I mean, eventually it moves on from that and it develops into more of a different song. I think it's just a relationship song about people who are just not at the same point in their relationship and don't have the same aspirations, don't have the same fantasies about the future. And again, it turns into a nice kind of mellow, jazzy, kind of Steely Dan-ish song. But once you get that Morning Train in your head, it is so hard to remove. I still haven't. It's been a week and a half. And I really, Annie, I'm mad at you for putting that song in my fucking head. Why did you do that? The last two songs on the record, At the Holiday Party and Candy Darling. We already referenced Candy Darling, how it's about the same Candy Darling from the old Warhol crew. And At the Holiday Party is just another extremely mellow, it's a nice song. Playing well, there's Rhodes keyboards, there's that kind of thing. So I guess my overall feeling is that I do enjoy this record. When I heard it a couple more times, I started to see what she wanted to do, how she was trying to go in this other area. And I know there's going to be people out there going, it doesn't sound like the 70s. Well, it does, kind of. Okay, it has a lot of keyboard elements, and you will hear stuff that sounds at various times like Stevie Wonder, like Steely Dan, like Pink Floyd, like Lou Reed, and a couple others. And I happen to like that period of time. I think there's a lot of great stuff came out then. I don't think that Annie Clark has worn out her like old sound. I mean, I don't even like calling it an old sound, but I mean, she's such a fantastic guitar player, has a signature guitar model, has a whatever. I don't think she can just sort of abandon being a front person with a guitar and writing guitar-oriented music. Maybe she doesn't have to do it every time, but I just don't think you abandon that when that's been your main instrument and you are a musician and you've been doing that for a really long time. So I sense that'll come back. Curious how this music is going to be presented live. That's another thing. It does make for great listening. It does make for great vinyl. The pressing, by the way, from Loma Vista, this first pressing, is just exquisite. It sounds really, really good. And a lot of new pressings and new releases just don't. And that's a fact. They just don't. This one actually does. But how it gets presented live, that's going to be the issue, because I know that St. Vincent has some festivals booked for this summer coming up. And I don't think this is festival music. Like, I hope I'm wrong, but when you get up on stage at a festival, when you're playing, the goal is to try to get the crowd to jump up and down and have a good time. And that's where you feel that sort of vibe from the audience. And I've been to worked enough festivals to know when an artist gets up there and the audience is just sort of like, no matter how excited they are to see this artist, if you don't pick up the pace, you're going to lose the audience. And she would know that more than me, because I've never performed in front of an audience, but she has. So I'm curious to see how that's presented, and if it will be mixed in with other songs, or if she's going to do Daddy's Home as a sort of a standalone, and then maybe come out and do some older songs, some hits, as it were. Don't know. But if I had to rate the album on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 stars being the best, I'd give it a solid 4. That comes with repeated listening, okay? Because I didn't get it at first. And I knew not to give up on St. Vincent, just because my initial reaction was, I knew not to give up on it, and I now really respect and appreciate what she's doing, while using the caveat of saying, I still wish she could incorporate her great guitar playing. She does there's 2 noticeable pieces of guitar work on the record, one on that Pink Floyd-ish sounding one, and on another track too, on side 2, but I just think when you're that gifted on the instrument, it's sort of like Eddie Van Halen going to keyboards or something. It's not quite that drastic, but it is something that it's noticeable. I think she's addressed it in interviews and sort of doesn't care what you think. I mean, she's not going to be tied down to one thing for her entire career, and if that burns a few fans or makes them unhappy, I think she's just going to say, you'll get over it. And that's true. I have gotten over it. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye.